So this session is on research impact and social innovation supports, and it is my pleasure to, my name is listed on this, but I am not actually presenting. So I'm just going to introduce this group and then get out of their way to their amazing presentation. So we have with us today Tara Barnas, Social Innovation Initiative Manager. We have Joanne Nowak, Senior Innovation Manager at the Social Innovation Hub, which we will be visiting the Social Innovation Hub tomorrow at lunch. And Sarelle Azuelos, whom many of you know already, is the Knowledge Engagement Specialist here at the University of Calgary. So I'll pass it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Just gonna try and find an average height for us today. So yes, we're here today to talk about research impact and social innovation supports at the University of Calgary. And thank you, Stephanie, for the introductions. We wanted to also take a little bit of time just to give you some context of what these different units do here on campus. So the knowledge engagement team, we support research partnerships, and that can mean that community partners in and around Calgary and researchers here on campus, generally within the social sciences and humanities, reach out looking for matchmaking services for support with knowledge mobilization planning. We do a lot of work around the implementation and sharing information on DORA. And soon we're going to be expanding to talk a little bit more about open science and what that looks like on campus.
Hi, good afternoon or good morning, everybody still. I think good morning. I'm Tara Barnas. I'm the manager for the Social Innovation Initiative here at the University of Calgary, working out of the Vice President Research Office. We are mandated to do three things. One, understand social innovation, build capacity for social innovation, and also recognize and reward. So out of that, I'll speak a little bit more about that work as we get closer into our presentation. I'll hand it over to my colleague Joanne to introduce herself.
This is where the average falls apart. Hi, everybody. My name is Joanne Nowak. So work at our Social Innovation Hub. So Innovate Calgary is the tech transfer office and innovation incubator of the University of Calgary. So when folks are a little bit further along, so they're seeking to move their work out of the university into community, perhaps into the market, to find sustainable models for sort of launching and scaling that impact. We work with them through coaching, expert advising. We have different resources to identify different pathways to sort of launch and scale their work in a sustainable way. Yeah, and we're a team that works together a lot, and we'll get into that. So.
I need taller shoes. So we did have a sort of lovely land acknowledgement that Stephanie led yesterday, but I did want to spend a little bit of time just situating ourselves geographically. And sorry to the folks on Zoom, I'm going to wave around as I do this and it might not work as well for you. So the U of C, we're located in the heart of Southern Alberta, and we acknowledge and pay tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7. So that includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is comprised of the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations. So the Siksika are to our east here of Calgary, which is also known as Mohkinstsis in Blackfoot, and they're about an hour outside of the city. Piikani and Kainai First Nations are much further south. So if you're familiar with Waterton territory or going for a drive closer to the border, that's where you'll find those folks. The Tsuut'ina First Nation is more in the southwest of the city, so generally in that direction. And the Stoney Nakoda, which includes the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. So again, if you're planning a trip to the mountains while you're here over the next couple of days, you'll likely be driving through Chiniki or Goodstoney territories to the west in the mountains. Yeah.
Great. So part of our work with the Social Innovation Initiative is to understand social innovation, build capacity, and recognize and reward social innovation. So if you can't define it, you can't measure it. So speaking to our first mandate and understanding it, we've actually created a definition that was developed from the result of our literary review, which was actually supported by a multidisciplinary team of academics. We also conducted this review to deconstruct concepts about social innovation throughout definitions within the literary review for about 272 peer-reviewed articles globally, which is incredible. We then reconstructed these concepts and recognized that there was something missing from the definition, and that was intentionality. So we put it into our definition We've also received positive feedback from participants within the International Social Innovation Research Conference, which actually was just held in Portugal. We've received feedback from our O'Brien Institute members forums and other academics globally around the world. We are looking to publish these findings this fall, but in front of you is how we define social innovation, which is great. Here at the University of Calgary, our approach is every door is the right door. Post-secondaries, as you know, are very complex and complicated. It's important to identify the system of actors that provide support, activities, resources to help facilitate or move social innovation forward that generate outcomes and impacts that contribute to solving society's most complex social problems. Our SI ecosystem includes actors such as Social Innovation Hub, Knowledge Engagement. You can also see others, Trico Foundation, the Hunter Hub, we have W21C, we have the great support from MyTax.
MyTax est notre système de soutien.
I don't know. Oh, okay.
Losing.
Sorry, it's okay. Yeah, we're just hearing the audio from Zoom, so we're just gonna pause.
Yeah, it should be on the original.
Okay, perfect. So coming back to our infrastructure or ecosystem, we work collaboratively to help mobilize social innovation that enable us to capitalize on synergies and avoid duplication, which is great. Each actor supports a specific stage of social innovators or enterprise that aligns with the various stage of knowledge mobilization, which is great. You can see this robust infrastructure reflects our current state, but we collectively are working towards developing processes to fuel our future. For example, the Trifecta Group, which actually is comprised of the three members that you see, Knowledge Engagement, the Social Innovation Initiative, and the Social Innovation Hub, to meet regularly to share information, but we also use this as an opportunity to deepen our work here at the university. Over to Joanne.
So to give, thank you. To give you an example, sort of one of the ways that we are working together, we leveraged an opportunity this year called the Design Café. So this was an initiative that was organized by ecosystem actors here in Alberta. They were inviting folks to who are in the social impact, social innovation space to come to this design cafe, leverage design and systems thinking, and bring a specific design problem that you're working on. You would come to this session and there'd be different ecosystem actors, there'd be other university actors there, community organizations, government, and you'd be getting their feedback on your specific design problem. So we were excited to take up the opportunity for some dedicated time together, including 8 hours in the car. It was in Edmonton, one day there and back. But, you know, for us to really take that time to really focus on the how of our work. The current state talks about the different sort of important foundational building blocks that we've been trying to put in place to make ourselves more aligned, smoother work, better coordinated. But we really wanted to take a step back to think about some of the sort of a bigger question about how we're doing our work. Can we do it better? So the specific question that we brought to this design cafe are what are the university's perceived assets by the public to help drive their social change work? So we had our assumptions, right? We have our assumptions. We're an R1 university. It's all about the research. That's what the people want. Overwhelmingly in the sea of stickies, it was students. That is the #1 perceived asset that they felt was most relevant to their pain points and that felt most clearly like this is something that would really benefit me. So that, again, the purpose of the design was to give that external feedback and like some blind spot. You might be pushing this message, not to say that they didn't care about research and ideas, but it might not be #1, right? So it was really interesting for us to get that feedback that students are a huge asset to help move that local work forward. And then those ideas, that social R&D, that expertise in the university, that they're interested in collaborating with to move their work forward, to test new things, to validate some pilot work they might be doing. So some validation and evaluation work from faculty and experts on campus, partnerships to do some of that work as well, and then capacity building. So tapping into different skills and training opportunities that might not have access to otherwise. So that was sort of what we heard about what were perceived assets. So then what are the barriers? So it was interesting to hear from them. Number one, lack of clarity or relevance about like where to even begin. Like, I don't even know what the university's assets are. I'm not sure I see how it's speaking to my local social change work and what the value is for me. What's the ROI? So that first barrier of like that sort of, why is this relevant to me, is that first sort of top level barrier. Then the second was, let's say they begin to try to engage the university. There were sort of some material barriers, costs, paywall, process barriers in terms of timelines and sort of their project cycles not matching up with academic semesters, ethics protocols that, you know, conducting research, if you're a community organization, can feel very different and different standards than the ones we have here. So how you align those, and then mindset and alignment was also really interesting, right? So feeling like I'm not going to pursue university because my research request doesn't feel academic enough. I don't feel like it's robust enough. It's deep enough to take to them. Who would be interested in working with me, and what sort of interests would they want? How can we find that alignment? So these different buckets of what are the assets and what are the perceived barriers were really interesting for us to hear about, and then for us to sort of step back and confirm that all of this internal work that we're doing to better align ourselves, come up with a common definition, really important, but to really remind ourselves that let's keep the user at the center here, user being folks in the community who are interested or who could benefit from the university's assets, and really pay attention to what are they actually seeing as the assets that's relevant to them, what are the pain points, and then to sort of take those as really key priorities to follow in our work.
There we go, Jen. So I'm going to steal Tara's thunder for a little bit here. She put together this incredible process map to sort of get us started on that first barrier that was identified. Where do we start? What exists? How do we navigate this system? And so to work through it together just a little bit here, we start off again with that warm door. Anyone can access us. Anyone can contact us. It could be community members. It could be researchers. It could be postdoc students or other staff. And then we have an intake process. And so at the moment, we're all kind of doing our own intake. They all look a little bit different, but we have been having some conversations about, can we share that? And how do we share the data that is collected from that? Those conversations are usually to help us identify what some of the goals are of either the community members or the researchers that we're working with. And then to see, do they have timelines? What kind of resource needs do they need? Do they have resources that they can contribute themselves? Is there a question of skill development that we want to explore as well? Then we have a decision, how do we move forward, and an action plan. So a little bit of figuring out the next steps. Do we have a project lead amongst one of our teams who's going to be taking this on moving forward? And then how do we identify which kinds of resources on campus we want to connect them to? Engaging supports is a little bit of everything right now. So we have research matching, finding partners across community and researchers on campus. There's things like partner exploration, legal, IP, ethics, which is housed within research services. So that's where KE can help navigate some systems, and grant and fund explorations and supports. Next, we have some activation. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of brokering that happens at this stage. We're emailing these different units. We're trying to build these relationships with community, with researchers, and all the other teams and resources on campus. And then sustainability. So as you can imagine, we've got just questions around scaling. Is this going to be a short-term project? How can we ensure that some of the work that's happening continues forward? We don't want to build relationships with a community organization and then disappear at the end of a grant, or contribute to some of those issues that we're all familiar with. And last but not least is reporting. So that question of evaluation, how do we measure things like output? What are the outcomes going to be? And how do we articulate the impacts? So I guess to put this in context, because we've been having these conversations just over the last couple of months, most of what we've put into practice is really focused on the first half of this, and we're still exploring what we want the sustainability and reporting piece to look like more formally. I wanted to really quickly run through one case example. So a couple of months ago, we heard from a community organization that does a lot of work in public health and in housing in the community. They had an idea in mind, one that they had sort of designed a couple of years ago. They had some relationships built, they were ready to get started, but then this thing called COVID happened, so we had to pull the plug and wait a couple of years for a better moment in time. So we did an intake again. We had some conversations to reevaluate their goals, their timelines, all the things that they might need from the university. And then we started in this next step, the three of us working together. So identifying some new research partners, putting them in contact with groups like MyTax to fund student placements, talking to folks in legal and ethics to see what does it look like to have OCAP principles integrated into a research partnership or CARE principles. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So we're still in the midst of writing these kinds of agreements and excited to see where it goes forward. So these are some of the next steps, again, based on the feedback that we heard from Design Cafe. We want to be able to capture and publish some of these case studies, develop a number of profiles, and figure out how we can best share them with the community. We're interested in sort of a way that folks can read them and see how they fit into a certain kind of environment or the similar kind of environment and all of the different opportunities that we can potentially support. We also want to make sure that we're not narrowing the playing field too much so that they don't self-select out if they don't see themselves in one of these case studies. We're also talking about leveraging the university's assets, community-driven innovation, like a 101 guide that we would be able to share with either staff on campus, community organizations, or researchers to help demystify this process again. And we've got just a couple of minutes left. So we had some questions for the room, but we also want to hear what your thoughts are on this. And yeah, so questions to read them out. Does this resonate with what's evolving at your institution? Are we missing anything? We know that there's going to be blind spots. We don't know what they are. Help us out. And then do you have any questions for us? And just a reminder to use your mics so the folks online can hear.
Yeah, hi, thanks for the great presentation. So this, your lab looks a lot like our community engagement office at UBC. And I'm wondering when you're thinking about sustainability and engaging community partners, do you provide funding or is there any opportunity for community partners to access funding when they're working with researchers?
Yeah, so KE as a unit doesn't necessarily, we do support the development of knowledge mobilization planning within existing SSHRC grants. And so that scaling question, sometimes that means helping folks understand the potential to go from a PEG to a PDG to a PG. But then I'll let these two answer because I think they have some different resources.
There is a little bit of funding that is available, but it depends on what it's required, like what they actually need in terms of funding. If it's to convene community or work with a community partner that they haven't worked with before, or if they want to leverage expertise from the community, then we do have monies that can support that. But again, it's project-based. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, similarly, I would say, so again, Social Innovation Hub, we're sort of thinking of what are different pathways of bringing in different types of financial support. So depending on the project, depending on the partnership we're interested in, maybe we would be looking at, okay, is there an opportunity for us to be leveraging foundation money? So let's work with you on that. Is this partnership potentially about piloting something interesting? Is there a way that we might charge a fee or a sliding fee for this? So you can be getting revenue in different ways. So trying to sort of open up different pathways for beyond grants. What are some other options for getting in some revenue or just some financial sustainability, and then working with them on that?
I think this question is for Joanne. I enjoyed the presentation from everyone. I wonder if you
Can you pause for a minute? Sorry, your mic just got.
Thinking I'm gonna repeat the question.
yeah, okay, I'll repeat it. There we go. The mic is live. So I think the question is for Joanne. If you could just unpack a little bit the results from that design cafe where they said that students were the #1 asset that the university has to offer. I'm very curious as to in what way. So is it student training? Are we talking about job market? Are we talking about opportunities to work with students? If you could just unpack that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so great question. And I think it actually spoke to sort of that first barrier, which is, I think a lot of us in the room are familiar with all of the different types of work integrated learning, internships, co-ops, capstones, like that world has so diversified and become nuanced to give students different opportunities. I really don't think that folks in the community know that there are all these different options, that they can have a short capstone course. There's co-ops that they can be doing more specific work that's a little more sort of output focused. There are consulting projects they can be doing with business students. There's such an array that my answer is, it wasn't very nuanced. It was just like, it looks like there's students there who can help me do my work. I don't know how to navigate that. I'm not sure what I would actually get, but I know there's a lot of students in there that are, you know, ambitious, aspiring young folk, and there's talent. So to help me do my work now. So I think there's a fair amount of knowledge sharing to do that black box. There's actually a lot of tools in that toolkit for you to make it fit with your cycles and timelines. But then to your point, this is also an opportunity for testing talent and pipeline and bringing folks in, and they might not necessarily have the other mechanisms to do that. So I think on both ends, but it was more of a general, help me leverage this thing to do my work. And then I think there's a lot of opportunity for them and potential for us to talk about. There's actually a lot of nuance and options here for you.
I want to go back to your question. Or the question community said was, would my question even be a research question? Would the university even be interested? I'm going to pitch it over to Michael because I keep surprising him saying, Michael, it's a role that Michael and Krista play at the university is receiving interest from community organizations. And Michael, what do you do to help them formulate a research question?
Thanks, David. So our office works with pretty much anybody who's not business. And in some cases we do, but we have some of the traditional innovation services like tech transfer and entrepreneurship. So I will connect with everybody. I want to understand what they're saying. And in some cases, it's an explicit research question. If it doesn't seem like it, I kind of put it back to them. It's like, where do you foresee the capacity of the institution helping out? Is this something researchers can engage? And maybe that gets them thinking about how to rephrase it. But I also let them know the suite of options, because in some cases, a team of students, like the proliferation of experiential education, for example, could allow them to come in and gain some real world experience. So it may not be capital R research, but so to your point, that notion of always being mindful of the assets within the institution, especially within the innovation landscape where things tend to change very quickly. There were a number of years where Krista and I were part of York's broader innovation office. And while we're not, we still kind of interlope, like we hang out with them because they're doing important things that seem to change quite quickly. So for all of us, it's knowing our institutional assets help, but having those conversations, because there's no bad questions. And in many cases, they may not know yet that it could lead to research, but more just engagement within the institution.
So we're just at time. So we have time for your response. And I did want to put it to online as well. If there's like one question from online, I think we can shift a little. I know we privilege the room quite a lot. So just want to make sure there's access there, but go ahead, Joey.
So I think great points. What landed with me here is sort of the importance in when I'm engaging with community organizations, local social innovators, that I'm mindful of how I'm framing the university And that, of course, there's this tremendous role of bringing this amazing social R&D off the shelf and into the community, but also talking about the university as this public asset. And how can we be of use to you, as opposed to, look at all our awesome stuff, how can you use this? Opens up that sort of sense of, oh, like you're actually asking me how like the university can be opened up for my needs versus sort of, here's the stuff we've produced, what are you doing? And everybody in this room knows that, but it was like a good reminder for me, I think, reframing to make sure it's sort of awareness of both ways, of the discussion going both ways, makes a little more comfortable in terms of feeling like that research request might be something taken up.